Pat Mahomes.
Bust. What would you have said if I bet you $100 at the end of the round robin and start of the playoffs that the Stars would be in the Stanley Cup playoffs or Stanley Cup finals?
I don't know.
Because Bomb.
That was their best player.
So how do y'all feel about this?
Very impressed with how bad they're doing.
Donovan Mitchell, who right now looks to be a superstar.
Yeah, and as a Cowboys fan, I have learned how dangerously good Aaron Rodgers has been with he can just thread a pass.
A lot worse than I thought. So, what do you think is going to happen in the game tonight, Kevin?
I don't know what to think.
They've won a game by 2 points, 3 points, and 1 point.
A very high number.
Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and that's all I have to say. He's still a top 5 quarterback in this league, and there's nothing really anyone can do about it.
Before the season started, traded for Mookie Betts. What do you think about that trade, Austin?
If he can step up, that'll really help the Lakers in the future.
Just amazing, and I don't care what the Red Sox got for trading Mookie Betts and David Price. The Dodgers, in my opinion, win it. I don't have to see what players they gave up.
I think we should move on to the Yankees, But after that, everything just fell apart.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our 19th episode of Outsiders Opinions. We've recorded over 15 videos, so let us know what your favorite video has been so far in the comments. Also, if this is your first time hearing our voices, please make sure to go listen to our trailer as it gives an explanation about the goal of our podcast. Today, we will be doing our power rankings of all of the 32 NFL teams. So let's start with number 32. We have the Jets, and there's really not anything good to say except tank for the number one. I think it's guaranteed, right? Looking at their schedule.
It's going to be close between them and the Jaguars if the Jaguars really want Trevor Lawrence. Because that's the only thing to be hopeful for right now if you're the Jets. The Jets and Jaguars, I don't think play each other. Yeah, they don't. So they're going to have to do it by playing other teams. And I don't think the Jets are going to go winless. I think because of their schedule, they do play teams I think give them a chance. They play against the Chargers, and they play against maybe a team like the Browns in the last week of the season. Maybe they're resting Baker because they can't move up in the playoffs or something like that. So they start their backup, and that gives them a chance. They start Case Keenum. But besides that, if they don't beat the Chargers and they don't beat the Browns week 17, I think they may actually go winless, and that'll be a travesty for an organization that's had so much heartbreak lately. So I think we should move on to 31 because there's not much more to talk about the terrible Jets team. And so 31, we have the Jaguars who put up a valiant effort last week against the Packers, but I don't believe the Packers were trying as hard as they should have, and they kind of took them lightly, and they still won by 4. So I think that just shows that the Jaguars aren't really it. I thought Lutton played well, and I don't know what Gardner Minshew's future is in the NFL, especially with the Jaguars. I think if the Jaguars don't want to pick a quarterback, they don't necessarily have to, but because they have so much to fix on their team, they could pick up Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle. That wouldn't be a bad move because I believe he'll be a cornerstone, and he could block for whoever's quarterback for the Jaguars in the future. The Jaguars, I think, could go with either Lutton or Minshew and be okay. What do you think?
Yeah, and you mentioned that's a really good idea about drafting the tackle from Oregon. I'm not going to try to say his name. But I think we've talked about it. It's important to develop the offensive line, but I'm just not really sure if you are not 100% sure about Minshew or Lutton. It's most likely going to be Justin Fields, but I think that'll be I think I'd take him because even though he did throw 3 picks today, I think he's going to be a good quarterback in the NFL.
And I agree. I think he's going to be a quality player, but my thing is if you don't have an O-line to block for your quarterback, I don't know how much he's actually going to grow. So I think step number one should always either be getting an offensive line player or a defensive player to help your quarterback either have some help so they don't have to score as many points, or help because they're not getting sacked on every other play like we've seen with the Bengals lately.
Yeah, and I think another interesting they could do, and same for the Jets, like there are a lot of holes. I think this draft is probably, I'm not sure if there have been quarterbacks, like two really good quarterbacks, like you're for sure going to be great. Um, as like last year, there were some good quarterbacks, but two are you worried about his injury history? Maybe trade down because I think you can get a lot. I know for the Jets, Trevor Lawrence you'll get a lot, and I think Jaguars you can get a lot for Justin Fields. I think some teams may be wanting to move up, and you can get a high asking price because we've seen the Rams and the Titans with that trade. Those picks turned down to Derrick Henry, but more players while the Rams got Jared Goff. But that's just a way that Jaguars could do it, and same for the teams in mostly the top five.
Well, my thing about that is if we look at the Rams and Titans, they're both 6-3 now. It worked out for both of them. It was a fair trade getting both of them. It's working out for both teams. So I think we should move on to 30, which is
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys. Hey, they almost beat the Steelers, but I was very shocked by that. The defense has gotten better, but trash smelling less trashy, still bad, but it's better than what it was.
yeah. I mean that Jalen Smith penalty killed the fan base. If he does not commit that penalty, which I believe that was unnecessary, and he did not have to make it, that roughing the passer, he doesn't make it. It's a 4th down and long. They probably punt it at 4th and 13 with like 6 minutes left, and that's where Zeke could show how much he's really worth, or Tony Pollard, or whoever you really want to run the ball with. But yeah, that penalty killed them. They don't have that penalty. Maybe they go for it on 4th down and stop them. They can get more points on the board. Instead, we know what happens, and the Cowboys are in a tough spot. I believe that Garrett Gilbert should still be starting with the team, even though it's going to be Andy Dalton. I thought Garrett Gilbert has played better in his one game against the Steelers than Andy Dalton's played the entire season because of the opponent he played against. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Also, what is there like? Andy Dalton's older than Garrett Gilbert, and like, just play Garrett Gilbert and see what we can get. Just do
Maybe
it,
you
and
could.
then
That's my thing. Maybe you could trade him later. Maybe
yeah,
you
or
could
it
do something
becomes
else.
becomes
Garrett
the
Gilbert, that
next
was his
backup
first start
quarterback.
in the NFL, and he played against a
Yeah.
top 5 defense. And I thought the one pick he had, I thought that was pass interference on the Steelers. I thought Amari
Mhm.
Cooper was getting held, and he threw it trying to get a penalty, and it ended up not working out. But he played well. He was not the reason why they lost the game. It was the defense making a bad play and some questionable play calling on the last drive for the Cowboys, who didn't want to move up further to get a better shot at the end zone.
Yeah,
And
and just a quick hit before we move on. The thing you pointed out, like two of the most players I dislike on the Cowboys, Jalen Smith. His dead cap this year is 23 million, and the next year 9 million. He's with the Cowboys until he's 30. So 2025. Same with Zeke. He hasn't even touched his $90 million deal when we have 6 more years. So uh, just love our GM and owner.
it's
But
not
we can
looking
go on
great.
to the Bengals.
Yeah, let's move on to 29. Right now, we have the Bengals. The Bengals have had some crazy performances lately where they come back, or maybe they even hold a lead against a quality team like the Titans, but their O line is really holding them back. T. Higgins is a quality wide receiver in this league. I believe that he will be a Pro Bowler in the future. Same thing with Joe Burrow. It's great to have two rookie players like that merge like that, or come together like that. They could either do that through a quarterback, tight end, quarterback, wide receiver, quarterback, running back. You're learning the game together. I think that's necessary sometimes. I think that's why the Cowboys did so well in their first season with Zeke and Dak, both rookies. They get to learn the NFL thing together and help and lean on each other. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree, and I think Joe Burrow has finally figured out the NFL, or I'm not saying figured out, but he's gotten accustomed to it. So we're seeing what we expect, and you're absolutely right. Just imagine if he had some time. Like we're not asking for the best offensive line, just a solid left tackle, and just solid protection. better than anything he has because you mentioned T. Higgins. You still have AJ Green. You also got Tyler Boyd. You got John Ross. You have Joe Mixon. Just the offensive line is the biggest part of an offense besides the quarterback. Um, as I think quarterback need to make them some throws, but the offensive line can open the run game, open the passing game, and just um, you have a great quarterback, and he's gonna just keep growing, and you have those weapons. But yeah, I think we can move on to 28. We have the Washington football team, and we know they lost, but I think for me, they can still win the division because I think even though Kyle Allen is the best quarterback for the future, I think Alex Smith offers a very safe option, and it's just great to see him back after that horrific injury, and you've seen all of the steps he has taken to come back. So it's just really nice, and I hope they can win the division this year, just so the Cowboys don't win and we get a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I like the Washington defense. Their D line especially is playing extraordinarily. I'm interested to see if Alex Smith can prove that he is still a capable starter. I don't really know anymore, and that's not his fault. I'm really happy to see him in the NFL. And after his horrific injury, I didn't think he would make it back, and he proved me and a lot of people wrong. And I'm so happy that he has, because I liked him as a player. I liked him with the Chiefs. I liked him with the 49ers, and I thought he was they were 6-3 before he got injured with the Washington football team, and they may have made the playoffs that year, and it was crazy. But I still think they will win the division. They have the second easiest schedule, only behind the Cowboys. And I don't think the Cowboys can make that to their advantage. They play against some pretty bad teams, and I feel like they can. Like I think they still play against the. They play against the Cowboys again. They play against the Eagles again. I think they also play. Let me see. I think they play against they do play against the Bengals tomorrow. They play against the 49ers. They play against the Panthers. Yeah, they play the Cowboys, Bengals, and Panthers. And the 49ers, while they do play the Steelers and Seahawks, most likely losses, if they could win those 4 games, we'll see. I don't know if a team's going to have 6 wins in the division. I think 6 wins may be what gets them in. If you could win 6 games, that may be the ticket.
And you mentioned their defensive line. You have Chase Young, and they've just I know defensive tackle from Alabama. They've been building that thing for years, and it's really paying off. And you mentioned the Bengals. You mentioned the Cowboys. What's one of their biggest weakness besides their defense for the Cowboys is their offensive line. And so terrible offensive line versus a terrific defensive line, that's just going to wreak havoc. Joe Burrow might call in sick that day.
Yeah. I mean, Washington, their O-line is not good, and I think that's what led to the Kyle Allen injury and the Alex Smith injury of previous years. But their D-line is a step in the right direction, and that's why I said you're either going to go with defense to help your quarterback out, or you got to go for the offense next. And if Washington does not make the playoffs, I definitely expect them to take an O-lineman. I think that will greatly help them. They have Terry McLaurin. They have Jordan Thomas, who's a Logan Thomas. Jordan Thomas plays for where's that Logan? There's one of those.
You're thinking Julius Thomas. Are you thinking Julius Thomas?
No. Julius Thomas is retired. One of the players for the Washington football team is it's Logan Thomas. Okay, Logan Thomas plays for them. I think Jordan Thomas plays for the Cardinals now. But yeah, Logan Thomas has played well. He's had he's a quality player. They also have Antonio Gibson, who's playing well. They have J.D. McKissick, who's playing well. I mean, I'm really impressed with their offense besides their O-line and obviously their quarterback right now. I'm not expecting them to put up this kind of a fight, and we'll have to see if they can continue the defensive pressure when they play against the Bengals tomorrow. And I definitely expect them to win, but I think we should move on to 27, which is for us, the Texans. And after that DeAndre Hopkins catch the other week, that was tough for them to see. And I think they're moving in. into no man's land. Their quarterback is too good right now for them to lose out. I don't know if they can. It's just they don't have a good enough everything. Like it's tough for me to see where they go from here. Their defense isn't bad, but it isn't great. Their offense is it doesn't have enough weapons. They have David Johnson who's playing well, but I mean their offense can't get enough points to beat teams like the Packers or any of those teams who they play against, and they couldn't even score 10 points to beat the Browns last week. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and you have, I think, probably one of the hardest parts of a rebuild. You have your franchise QB in Deshaun Watson, but you just need to surround him. And I think what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get a good GM. And I think a good GM who's built some. You talked about the Browns. He fixed the Browns. It's John Dorsey. I think he's still a free agent or free. He's not with any team right now. He left the Browns at the end of last season. And I think you go with the Chiefs again. You go get Eric Bahimi. I think he is going to be an incredibly gifted head coach. Um, and I think you trade J.J. Watt. I think J.J. Watt still has some value, and you trade him and see what you can get because they don't have a first-round pick. That's what hurts. Bill O'Brien traded a first-round pick. And so good job for the Dolphins. We'll get to them later. And that you're going to have to trade some good players. And I think everyone's on the line except Laramie Tunsil and Deshaun Watson.
You know what the crazy part is? If Deshaun Watson was on the Washington football team, they would be above 500 in my mind. If Washington had that QB who is like Deshaun Watson, who can make any play happen, and I believe Terry McLaurin is capable of being like a DeAndre Hopkins, being one of the best wide receivers in the league. This is only his second year and he's playing well, but I mean, to go into Texans, I don't know what they do. They have to trade. They have to clean house. You're right. They do have to trade J.J. Watt probably for a draft pick or something later on. But I don't know what they do. They're running of all the teams we have mentioned. I believe they're in the worst situation. Even though the Jets are worse, they're most likely going to get a first pick. They'll get a Trevor Lawrence, and their O-line isn't as bad as the Bengals because they got Mekhi Becton. They drafted, and they're continuing to draft for the O-line. And I think they could make decisions that could save them. And every team before this, I just think they have a better outcome in the future for the Texans. I do not know if the Texans are going to win a Super Bowl in the next 10 years. I don't think, and that's probably that's how long Deshaun Watson will most likely play for them, a long time. And while I don't know if he'll play 20, because, I mean, not every quarterback can do that, he's definitely an elite quarterback who can make any play happen. But without a wide receiver like DeAndre Hopkins and without a running back like Lamar Miller, who got injured and tore his ACL the year before, I mean, I don't know what they're doing. They're just running in place and only getting worse.
Yeah, and just a quick thing about Jets. They traded one of their best players, Jamal Adams, and they got like 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, they're making moves to make him better, and I don't know if the Texans are doing that.
Yeah. And 26, the Chargers. You got a good QB. It's just they cannot hold a lead, man.
Yeah, it's tough. They just they have quality players: Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Joey Bosa. It hurts that Derwin James is injured, and I have no idea why they traded Casey Hayward. However, their defense is still much better than any of the teams we mentioned besides Washington, and they have the best healthy quarterback of all the teams we mentioned besides the Texans. I mean, Dak's top 5, but he's injured, so or he's top 10, but his ankle's hurt. But the Chargers, I mean, like you said, they cannot hold a lead. They remind me a lot of the Bengals, who had some really close games against really good teams, but the Chargers have never. They are 2-7 and have yet to lose a game by less than 1 score. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense, but they have their QB for the future. They have a team built to do better later, but they need to fix their own line also. And what are your thoughts about them?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure if they need it. I say give Anthony Lynn 1 more year. It's like you mentioned, a really good quarterback. I think it's important for the quarterback to have a stable system during these pivotal years. as Justin Herbert. So give him like one more year with Anthony Lynn. Let's see what can happen. And yeah, I think we can go to the next team.
Yeah, at 25, we have the Broncos, who made that outstanding comeback against the Chargers. They're 3-6. Drew Lock played so bad last week, so bad. Their team as a whole played terrible. However, they are 3-6. They have good running backs like Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay. Tim Patrick's playing well, and they'll get Cortland Sutton back next year. Their defense is very injured, but I believe they can bounce back next season. But they need to start thinking about who they're going to draft because I don't think they have even close to a chance to even getting uh, close to the playoffs. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think this is the theme of the day right now. Offensive line. I think Drew Lock, I really like him as a quarterback, and I think he's going to really help. You have weapons, but now you just need to give him time to hit those weapons. Uh, you also, Jerry Judy, he's from wide receiver U, Alabama. We've seen the wide receivers Alabama has brought out. Incredible. So I think we can move to 24. The Giants, who they're in the NFC East, so they have a chance at either one of the top 5 picks in the draft, or they can win the division. Up to them. And I think, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. The Giants are confusing. They would be my pick to win the division if they had Saquon. Wayne Gallman's playing well, but not Saquon level. And I don't trust their team right now. They've had some big wins against the Eagles. They got close against the Buccaneers. A lot of these bad teams are actually playing well against good teams, which is confusing because then they get blown out by moderate teams. But I mean, I really want to see them do well. I like Daniel Jones, but I don't know if he's a QB for the future. Um, Another team where they only have Kevin Zeitler, who's the only good. He was really in trade talks, and he's a really good right guard. But I don't trust the rest of their O line, and I don't know if they could win the division because I don't trust that they could be consistent. And that's where I think a lot of these bad teams are doing is they're not consistent enough for them to have continued success. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think Joe Judge is a good, as of right now, a good head coach for the future. But I think the COVID situation really hampered him to get his ideas down. And I would agree. I'm not sure about Daniel Jones. How about I'd say give him one more year, because I don't know if they're going to be in the position to draft another quarterback for a little bit. At a very have a high pick to draft a good quarterback without trading. But so I think we can move to 23. Correct?
Yeah, I think so. So 23 is the Atlanta Falcons. It's tough looking at their situation because they have a lot of older players. They have Calvin Ridley, who's younger, but I mean, most of their good players are older. Their defense is atrocious, but Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley give them hope. Todd Gurley's played well for them, and I don't know where they're obviously going to have to draft somebody. Their O line isn't terrible, so they're probably going to have to draft for the defensive side of the ball. Your thoughts on that?
I think they should start looking. They should start listening to trades because I think Julio, even though how good he is, I think you got Calvin Ridley, and I might be start looking for a quarterback of the future. Like I'm not saying I just think money wise, and see what you can get. Like I'm not saying go sell everyone, but listen, and I think you can get a lot for Julio still, and maybe Matt Ryan. There might be some teams who want him, and if they get high, but or maybe trade down and get some picks. Those are
Yeah,
my thoughts.
yeah, they're in a tough situation. They're kind of like the Texans. Their players are older, but they don't really have a clear vision because their young players aren't really stepping up or just aren't in the positions to lead them into the future. But I don't know if I could say anything else. If you want to move to 22, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah, 22. We have the Eagles. Yeah, none of the NFC East teams could make it out of the lower 20. So, um, I think I wonder if they're going to put in Jalen Hurts. I don't think so, but it'd be interesting to see. their offensive line has been riddled with injuries. They have a potential for a good defense, but I think injuries have really hampered them, and I think the offense has the supporting cast for Carson Wentz has really fallen off. What are your thought? What do you think?
Yeah, and Carson Wentz has played so poorly lately. I don't know what his future in the NFL is. I'm really starting to question what he can really do for this team in the future. They obviously won one without him with the Super Bowl, and they may start thinking maybe we move on to Jalen Hurts. Maybe we think that trading Carson Wentz to a team who does not have a capable QB is maybe the move. I don't know what the Eagles do. Uh, Doug Peterson is a good head coach, but he's really put that into question this year. And they got Alshon Jeffrey back last week, but they still ended up losing to the Giants. And I don't know. All the NFC East teams aren't moving in the right direction except for, I guess Washington and the Giants are moving in the right direction, but I mean, they're still very bad teams, and we'll have to see what they do.
Yeah. The Eagles also have Howie Roseman, who I think is a pretty good GM because he turned whatever Chip Kelly left him uh, when they got rid of Nick Foles, rid of LaShawn McCoy, and I think within 3 years they won the Super Bowl. So I think he can really turn around the Eagles, and I think he could probably get a trade for Carson Wentz if there is.
Yeah, he's a good GM, and he could definitely make something out of this. But I don't trust right now that they're moving in the right direction, especially after all the injuries they're having on their O line. It's just making their O line look absolutely terrible when they have a really good O line. They have really good O linemen. So I think we can move on to 21, which are the injury riddled also 49ers, who it is tough looking at them from where they were last year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but if you look to the year before that, that was the year they had injuries. So they're going to bounce back next year because I don't know what pick they're at, but they're in a high pick, and they're going to hit on that pick because their front office is good. I think it's John Lynch as the GM, and I think Kyle Shanahan's a good coach. And I think they might move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. He really doesn't have that much dead cap. He only has like $2 million compared to his cap hit was $24 million. So they've already gotten rid of his guaranteed. So I'm wondering if they might trade up, like we talked about with the Jaguars or Jets. But I think they're on the right track because they've done this before. They do really bad. They get a high pick, hit on that pick, and oh yeah, by the way, that pick last year was Nick Bosa, who is injured. Like plenty of their defensive, like all their defensive line is hurt, right? Except the rookie they drafted.
Basically, Javon Kinlaw. Yeah, he's the only one I see that's right now fully healthy. I mean, I bet some of them are still playing, but they're just very, very injured right now, and it's definitely concerning to see how the injuries are moving. And I don't know if they move off of Jimmy Garoppolo this season or next. We'll have to see if they actually feel like he is not the QB for the future, but he definitely isn't helping his own case.
Yeah. I think we can go to 20, where we have the Lions, and they have Matthew Stafford, but they did win against the Washington football team, but it got close in the end. But I think they might be moving on from Matt Patricia. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is Matt Patricia's last chance to prove something. They still obviously with only 5 losses could make the playoffs. They play against some really hard teams, but they're playing well. They should have beaten some teams more handily. They only won last week by 3 against Washington. Their future is into question because of Matt Patricia not playing as well. But I mean, I don't. They're in a tough spot because I believe that Matthew Stafford is a quality quarterback, and that their defense is getting better after getting worse from losing Darius Slay. And this is Matt Patricia's last chance. If he does not get to 7-9, I don't think he really has a chance at being a head coach next season. But if he can get them close to the playoffs, I believe he'll stay for another year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's a really tough division they're in with the Packers, Bears defense. Bears have incredible defense, and then the Vikings. So it will be very interesting to see what they do, because I think they do need to make changes. But I think we can move to 19, and where we have the Carolina Panthers, and they hit on their head coach hire in Matt Rule, and just they've been in really close games. They were in a really close game with the Chiefs. They're really close. Well, not really. It was close for a little bit against the Buccaneers until that Ronald Jones 98-yard run.
Yeah.
They have a lot of young players, and I think they're heading in the right direction. Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I mean the Panthers, Christian McCaffrey has to get healthy. He is the best running back in the league when healthy, and he's essential for the Panthers to perform well. I knew that the Panthers weren't going to be all that great this season. I expected better than what they are right now at 3-7, but we have them up so high above teams who have 4 wins or less because of how well they're playing against good teams. And I really trust that they are moving in the right direction. Teddy Bridgewater, I think, is a quality quarterback, but I believe that their O-line is a little bit of a question. They need to sign some new guys, but I don't think they need to address that too much in draft. Their defense needs more. They need a better defensive line, and their linebacker core, after losing Luke Kuechly, that hurts so much. And I don't really know where they're going to get it. Maybe they get it in the offseason, or they get it in the draft. But they have to address their defense if they want to become a contender in a really tough division.
Yeah, I would agree. And but I think they're heading in the right direction, because Falcons, you don't really know where they're going, and I think Buccaneers, their quarterbacks are old Breeze and
Blaine
Tom
Gabbert.
Brady. Well, yeah, but I think then as soon as they start hitting on those picks and those picks start developing, they'll be able to definitely contend. But I think they're going to have to hit well on their picks. I think we can move to 18.
Yeah, and at 18, we have a team that was really high on our last power rankings. Last time we did our power rankings, they were the let me find them. The Bears were number 13, so they've fallen down 5 spots. At number 18, it's the Chicago Bears. Their defense is the best in the league, but their offense is also one of the worst. So it's tough for me to say if they actually come back and do make the playoffs or make a push at least. The teams above them are all 6-3 or higher. So them at 5-5, they've lost 4 straight after being 5-1. I mean, it's just been tough. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the Bears offensive line, going back to that theme of the day, that's the only thing that's hampering Nick Foles, because when we saw Nick Foles win that Super Bowl and go on that incredible run, the Eagles offensive line was healthy, and that was the biggest difference, because the Bears have a good running back. They have a good wide receiving core, similar to what the Eagles had, and you have one of the best defenses. You have one of the best pass rushers in the league, and the secondary is good. It's just you need that. The offensive line sets everything up as it opens the lanes, and I mentioned it before, but I think that's all we got, so we can move to 17, where we have.
Yeah,
you got one more thing.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, yeah, it's like you were saying about the offensive line. It is the foundation for every offense. And while you do need a great quarterback, and you do need good wide receivers, and you do need a good running back, it's the O-line that allows those players to play well. Against any quality defense, they're going to be exposed when the offensive line cannot block anyone. And the Bears, they've only beaten teams, besides the Bucs, who do have a good D-line, they've only beaten teams who aren't that great. They beat the Falcons. They beat the Lions, etc. But for them to step up, they have to get their O-line either play well, or they have to sign someone in free agency this upcoming year or draft someone. Because I believe that Nick Foles is better than Mitch Trubisky, and everyone's trying to blame Nick Foles and not the O-line. But he has no time, and Matt Nagy's play calling isn't helping. So, yeah, let's move on to 17.
Yeah, we're going to the team that beat the Bears, the Vikings, and they've seemed to have turned it around. They could make a playoff push, and Dalvin Cook is just feasting. And then Kirk Cousins got his first Monday Night Football win. I think the key is Dalvin Cook because that can help their defense get some rest, and it can just run the clock. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Dalvin Cook is a top 5 running back in the league, but I don't trust Kirk Cousins' ability right now to find open receivers. I mean, if we looked at the game on Monday night, they didn't really play outstanding. They won, but they only scored 19 points, and you can't score 19 points against most capable offenses and expect to win games. They will again play the. I think they play the Lions again, right?
Yeah. I'll check right now. They actually play the Cowboys this upcoming week, but
Oh yeah, they only played the Lions twice. Wow.
They play the Lions on January 3rd.
Oh, okay. So they play him at the last game of the week. I mean, not last game of the last week of the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll probably be one of the games that either. I mean, I know most people aren't calling into question Mike Zimmer, but he could be on the block if they decide to, or if they do not perform well this season. And I mean, that last week of the season could prove to either get one coach fired or one coach saved. I mean, we'll have to see how they do. I'm not really too confident in their abilities because of how bad they played at the beginning of the year. I think the Packers are going to run away with the division, but we'll get to them later.
Yeah, and 16 we got the Patriots, and dang, they they didn't look so good in the they barely beat the winless Jets, but they took down the Ravens, and this just goes to show how Bill Belichick is one of the best coaches of all time. You've seen the offense is just so different from what Tom Brady's offense was when he was in New England. It's very run first. You see a lot more quarterback runs, and that their defense is playing. It's getting back to playing well, and that run game it's so different from what it was with Tom Brady. Do you agree?
Yeah. They're it's just running now. It's either running with Cam Newton, running with Damian Harris, running with James White, running with Rex Burkhead. They have a very quality backfield. I just don't know if their defense, obviously because of the players they lost because of COVID, they're not playing as well. But we had the Patriots up so high because of Cam Newton playing better these last 2 weeks, but it's mainly because of Bill Belichick. It's because of the history of the Patriots. We trust in their ability, but we have them at 16 because we're cautious. We don't know if they're going to come back. They may have to draft a quarterback this year if they don't think that Cam is the future, but we'll have to find out. And I think we can move on to, unless you got something else.
No.
But yeah, let's move on to 15, where we have the Cleveland Browns, who won 10-7 against the team we had at 27th this week, the Texans. After Nick Chubb ran out the 1-yard line, which made no sense to me because they were going to be up by 10 points. But I mean, if he just wanted to mess with fantasy managers, I mean, I guess that's a good joke. Your thoughts?
Yeah. That play was very good. But speaking of Nick Chubb, him and Kareem Hunt, that's a nice backfield, and they got Myles Garrett. They have, well, I'm not sure about this upcoming week because Myles Garrett got placed on the COVID/reserve list, but they're 6-3. That's just weird to say. even though it's 2020. But they've really, I think they can rely on that run game, and that makes it easier for Baker. And they have helped their offensive line. They got Jack Conklin from the Titans, so it looks bright. They might make the playoffs.
Yeah. The Browns are 6-3. We'll have to see if they can keep it going. The AFC is good this year. But Baker, I mean, it's tough. We'll have to see how they continue. Jarvis Landry's played okay this season, and I mean, Austin Hooper hasn't played as well as I thought he would. But you're right. It's all about their O-line, who's playing well, and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in the backfield. Now that Nick Chubb's back, he played well last week, and he should have scored another touchdown, but that's not neither here or there. But, yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how the Browns do. We have them below a good number of AFC teams because we don't trust that they're going to keep it up because of again, it's the history of the Browns. That's why we had the Patriots so high. This is why we had the Browns at 15, even though they're 6-3, because we just don't trust that they're going to be consistent because of their history. And I do believe that they chose the right head coach this time. He is quality. What's his name again?
It's the defensive coordinator from the Vikings last year.
Yeah, it's Kevin Stefanski. There we go. Okay. He's done really well with a team that most of us expected to make the playoffs this year, but we'll have to see if they can continue it. And we can move on to 14.
14. We have the Raiders, and they beat the Chiefs a few weeks ago, and they destroyed the Broncos. Derek Carr is starting to get back to his form from 2 years ago, or was that longer? But I'm not sure. But that's really good, and their defense is starting to step up. We'll have to see in the rematch Sunday night against the Chiefs. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this will really show where the Raiders are. If they win, they will most likely make the top 10 for our next power rankings. If they don't, they may fall because I don't know if the Raiders can make the playoffs. If we look at the standings in the AFC, the teams at the top right now, all of them are 6-3 or higher. There's a ton of teams who are 6-3. I think there's 6. Let me count. So there's the Dolphins, Ravens, Browns, Colts, Titans, and Raiders. Not all those teams are making the playoffs. There's not that many playoff spots. There's 7, but there's not 8, and teams are going to win a division. So I don't know if the Raiders can make the playoffs. This week is definitely going to be a huge performance for them. It either makes or breaks their season.
Yeah, I think we can move on to 13. We just talked about 14. 13, where we have the Cardinals, who we talked about earlier, but that trade with Hopkins, that has to be like the second worst trade of all time. Like most lopsided, and like number one, you have the great trade robbery by Jimmy Johnson. Just because DeAndre Hopkins is the best wide receiver in the game right now. One of those corners that he pulled the ball from was Tre'Davious White, who's one of those good corners, and Kyler Murray just threw the ball up there, and it's just phenomenal. And their defense is starting to play better, but I really think they can make the playoffs, and they're just gonna have to ride Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. I don't know if I would go far enough to say that Hopkins is the best wide receiver in the league because I believe that he's played well, and that was an amazing catch. However, he is having on and off games. I mean, 2 weeks, the game against Miami, he only had 30 receiving yards. And while Miami does have a really good defense, I don't know if it's good enough to hold or it shouldn't be able to hold the best wide receiver in the league to 30 yards. And then he has 127 against the Buffalo, and then this week when they lose, he had 51. He's an on and off. There's weeks where he definitely is the best in the league, and there's weeks where he definitely throws it into question. However, he's no question top 5, and it's no question that the Texans made a terrible trade. This is really helping the Cardinals increase their speed of development. And while I don't have it confirmed that they make the playoffs, it is very likely because the only team that can knock them out is the Bears. And while the Bears definitely have a better defense, they don't have Kyler or DeAndre Hopkins. So we'll have to see how that goes. And I think we can move to 12, which is a team that beat the Cardinals with the Dolphins. Like I said, they held DeAndre Hopkins to 30 yards receiving and only 3 receptions. Their defense is carrying them. Their defense has scored a touchdown in like all the last games because they're just that good apparently. And while Tua has only had 510 passing yards in 3 games that he started, 519 in the season, 510 in the 3 games that he started. It's really been a defensive show for the Dolphins. Brian Flores has shown that he's a very, very, very capable defensive coach. He is one of the best new head coaches in the league, and I really trusted him to be good because he's on that Belichick line. And Brian Flores was a very integral part of the 2018 championship where they only held the Rams to 3 points, and then they ended up beating the Rams a couple of weeks ago by scoring 1 special teams touchdown and 1 fumble return for a touchdown. And the Dolphins are moving in the right direction. While I still believe that Fitzpatrick should be the quarterback, and I believe he's played much better than Tua, Tua has not thrown any picks, even though there was many close picks in every game that he's played in. He's done enough. And again, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs because there's so many 6-3 teams. I don't know if this team's legit yet. That's why we only have them at 12. However, we'll have to see how they do. Your thoughts?
Brian Flores, I think that Belichick line, it really hasn't turned out well, but he seems to be proving it wrong, as Bill O'Brien was from Belichick. Josh McDaniels didn't turn out well when he decided to be the head coach for the Broncos. But yeah, they've made key additions in the offseason, in the draft and free agency. They got really good corners. Byron Jones, combined with Noah Iwuagabene in the draft, and they got Kyle Van Noy. I think that's a good system. Always rely on your defense, but I think Tua's getting better each and every week, so that seems to be a good sign, if not for this season, but for the future seasons. I think we can move on to number 11.
Yeah, with 11, we have the Tennessee Titans. They are also 6-3 after losing to the Colts. They're in a tough spot. They've lost 3 of their last 4. Their defense isn't playing as well as I thought they would. I don't know how they allowed that many points to the Colts, whose offense isn't playing all that well. But they still have Derrick Henry. They still have a still improved Ryan Tannehill. Mike Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the league, in my opinion, top 8 at least. And we'll have to see if they make the playoffs. The Colts are ahead of them now, while both being 6-3 because they played each other, and the Colts obviously won. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, and you mentioned Derrick Henry, but they really got to fix up that defense. That defense was pretty good last season, and you added Jadeveon Clowney this season. So they really need to fix that, because I think if that defense can just make some key stops, do a bend don't break defense, Derrick Henry can take him, or Ryan Tannehill. And I think we can move on to number 10.
For 10, we have the Indianapolis Colts, who just beat the Titans. They've really impressed me because I did not expect them to be this good after they lost Marlon Mack for the season. Their defense is probably 3rd best in the league, behind only the Steelers and the Bears, and they've really been holding teams down. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the Colts are. I wasn't sure about Phillip Rivers, but he does have some nights where he plays really well. But I'm curious to see how he will bounce back this upcoming week. And you mentioned it, Marlon Mack's been really hurting him, but they have a good offensive line. You have one of the best guards in the league, Quentin Nelson, and their wide receivers are starting to get back into it. And you mentioned it, their defense. I think they win this division. I don't know if you agree with that.
Um, I'm on the fence right now, man. The Titans and Colts
tough.
are both 6-3, and we'll have to see whoever wins the next matchup between them will win the division. In my mind, we'll have to see though if Derrick Henry can take over that game or uh, what happens. They play not this week but next week, and while Indianapolis is favored to win, uh, I think the Titans have something else to say about that. But right now, yeah, probably I would take the Colts because of how well their defense is playing. It's been inspirational almost to see from where they were a couple years ago, one of the worst defenses in the league, getting carried by Andrew Luck to now carrying their offense. It's really been a flip flop between where they used to be and where they are now.
Yeah, it will definitely be an interesting thing to watch. I think we can go to number 9 where we have the Buccaneers, and they bounce back after that terrible showing against the Saints where they just got demolished. But we saw them beat the Panthers. You had Ronald Jones get a 98-yard touchdown run. That was incredible. I really think um, they need to. The run game will help them because they have plenty of running backs that they can choose from. You got Ronald Jones, you have Leonard Fournette, you have LaShawn McCoy, and I think if that Tom Brady just has to find where to throw because he has the weapons. It's just I think the run game will help open his weapons. Do you agree?
Yeah, the O line's playing well. Like we said, it's the theme of the day. It's the theme of the year. It's the theme of football. That doesn't really get talked about enough, but it is definitely essential. Um, yeah, I mean, Tom Brady always needs some sort of run game so he doesn't have to pass it all the time. And those running backs that you mentioned are going to be essential for them if they're going to win a Super Bowl. While they do have the wide receivers capable, um, all their wide receivers aren't playing as well besides Scotty Miller. Aren't playing as well as I expected them to. Scotty Miller is playing maybe the best of all of them because Antonio Brown's not playing that well. Mike Evans is getting locked up. Chris Godwin's been injured the entire season almost, and he's playing, but only in sparingly uh, times. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough, and we'll have to see how they perform later on to the season, where it's going to be a lot more evident where they're going to end up. So I
Yeah.
think we should move on to 8, which
Yep.
is
At 8, we have the Ravens.
yeah,
Yeah. The passing game is just they really need to upgrade. I think a pass catcher. Do you agree?
yeah. Um, I don't trust Lamar right now against quality defenses. We saw that last year against the Titans in the playoffs. We saw that the year before when the Chargers had a good defense against them in the playoffs. He's 0-2 in the playoffs. He lost to the Patriots, who were just ran down the Baltimore defense. I don't know if the Baltimore defense is good enough for the run game. And that really called into question. I don't know if they can stop the run for them to win games. And because the Chiefs got Le'Veon Bell and still have Darrell Williams and other players for them, I mean, it's going to be tough for the Ravens to stop teams like maybe the Titans again. The Titans would run all over the Ravens like they did last year. I don't really trust their ability. We have them at 8 because Lamar Jackson is just that good, and John Harbaugh is just that good of a coach. And yeah, it's tough. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and they do have a lot of injuries. They lost Calais Campbell, and then I think the backup nose tackle Brandon Williams. But you're right; they can't stop the run. And you mentioned like the Titans or the Chiefs, their division, the undefeated Steelers, and it's gonna be a close game. But I don't know if they can pull it out. Um, but I think we can move on to number 7.
Well, just one last thing is
Okay.
another reason why the Steelers won is that James Conner just played well against the Ravens. I don't know if the Ravens. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if Lamar can pass well enough against great defenses, and I don't know if their run defense is good enough to stop these stellar teams. Because the Chiefs and every team can run the ball except for the Bears right now. So it's going to be tough for them to beat teams who also have a passing game. So you can't commit fully with extra guys. And let's move on to 7, where we have the LA Rams, who've really impressed me this season. They beat the Seahawks. And, well, we'll have to see how they do the rest of the season. But right now, they are our 7th team. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and they did get rid of Todd Gurley in the offseason, but they got some nice running backs. Cam Akers is one of them, and that's really helped elevate their offense. And their defense is just full of game wreckers. You have Aaron Donald, and then you also have Jalen Ramsey in the back end. And I think the pressure, the combination of one of the best pass rushers from the inside, combined with a great cornerback, it's great. That's what your defense, they can definitely get takeaways and create pressure. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they have 3 capable running backs, and that's what makes it insane. Not only do they have some good wide receivers, also they have Robert Woods, who's playing outstanding. They have Cooper Kupp, who's played well. They have Tyler Higbee at tight end. Their O-line, even though they lost Andrew Whitworth the week, we hope he gets back. And I don't know what really happened to him. I just know he got carted off the field. But they played well on both sides of the ball, and they shut down the Seahawks offense. They only held them to 16 points, which is remarkable if you think about it. But it's going to be tough for them against certain teams who can overcome their defense, and I believe they're almost like the Bears in that sense, where I don't know if their offense is good enough. While they do have Jared Goff, I don't know if Jared Goff can be enough. They have Malcolm Brown, they have Cam Akers, they have Darrell Henderson, but I don't know if they can run against good run defensive teams. That's why we have them above the Ravens, because I believe that the defense for the Ravens isn't good enough to stop them, and I believe that the defense for the Rams would stop Lamar Jackson. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think they do have Sean McVay, and I think that can help their offense. But your offense can only go so far with the coach. So I think I'm just not sure Jared Goff can really step up when Sean McVay's play doesn't work and he has to ad lib. But I think we can move up to the number 6.
Yeah, and at number 6 we have the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know, man. We have them at 6 below the Saints, the Bills, the Packers, the Steelers, and the Chiefs, because all those teams we just feel like they can do more right now. The defense for the Seahawks is setting them back, and it's forcing Russell Wilson to make some very questionable passes that he turns into picks. Russell Wilson is a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the league, but when you have a defense that's that bad, I just don't know if you can do enough. They played well against the Cardinals last week, but the defense has to be more consistent and cannot just lean on Russell Wilson until he throws 4 picks and you lose a game by 50.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's very uncharacteristic of Seattle to be relying on their offense and their defense. This was the team a few years ago, Legion of Boom. They really need, and they also made a trade for Jamal Adams. They made a trade for Carlos Dunlap. They really need to find a way just to have it like bend, don't break. That's another theme. Theme for the defense: bend, don't break when you have a high-powered offense. And I think Russell Wilson just has to calm down and stop putting everything on his shoulders, because I think when he thinks of that defense, okay, I have to do this, it really causes him to make risky throws that turn into picks.
Yeah, and I think we can move on to 5. The New Orleans Saints, who just lost Drew Brees for at least 3 weeks, and I think they made the right choice starting Taysom Hill, because I believe that he has more time with the organization and knows the system better than Jameis Winston. And while Jameis Winston did come into play last week, I don't know if he played outstanding or anything. But the reason why we have him above Seattle is we expect Drew Brees to be back by the time the playoffs come around. And they have a better defense. That's really the key. Their O-line is good. Drew Brees is not as good as Russell Wilson. However, the defense for the Saints excels at stopping the run. It excels at shutting down long passes. And while they are bend don't break on the passing end to an extent, it's good enough for their team to get enough yards and enough points to win most games. There's only been one game where it was just a runaway and where their defense could not stop them, and that was against the Packers. The Packers scored 37, and that's really where the Saints have to stop those top echelon of teams who almost beat anybody just by scoring. And the Saints have only lost 2 games so far, and we'll have to see how they perform later. But what are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I think I was very intrigued by the decision to start Taysom Hill over Jameis. I thought Jameis was going to get it, and I was very intrigued to see how played well when he was going to get the start. But Taysom Hill is he's a Swiss Army knife, and you have Alvin Kamara, and yeah, I'm very intrigued. I think they can still do well with Drew Brees out, as I think Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston in that offense and with Sean Payton can help. He'll just rely on his defense. He'll make the right play call. We saw them do it with Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not sure if Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston can play to Teddy Bridgewater to that same style, but it would be very intriguing to see. But I don't see them losing like the next 2 games. I think they'll be competitive in these next 3 weeks without Drew Brees.
Yeah, and I think we can move to 4. A team that beat Seattle, has beaten the Rams, and has really put up a fight on every game that it's lost, and that's the Bills. The Bills, while they've lost to teams ahead of them like the Chiefs, they are really good. And that fluke loss to the Cardinals, I'm going to call it a fluke, because not every game ends the way that one did. And I don't think it will happen again to the Bills because now they know that situation. Their coaches definitely hounded them on that play. And while there were 3 guys on D-Hop, he got up there and they didn't contest the ball well enough. They contested the guy. And with hands like DeAndre's, he's going to catch it. You have to take away the ball. You can't let it get to his hands. And that's really what they're going to talk about. And I believe that the Bills' offense is good enough and their defense is good enough. They have a good enough O-line, a good enough offense, and a good enough defense. That's the 3 facets of the game you really need, and their special teams is good. I think you can separate it to 4 parts of the offense. I mean, of the game, because I believe the O-line and offense is separate. Because there's good offenses. You remember with Russ or DeAndre when DeAndre Hopkins was back on the Texans, they had a pretty good offense, but they kept on sacking Deshaun Watson. Or even when Russ had a very bad O-line, he continued to get yards and get touchdowns, but he was still getting sacks the most in the NFL. That's why I believe you can separate them. But the Bills have all 4 facets taken care of, and they're definitely in the top echelon of teams. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and their receiving core was good last year, but that just it got better with the addition of Stephon Diggs. And I think Stephon Diggs allows them to create more one-on-one matchups because they have Cole Beasley, who I think is a great slot receiver, and it's very key on third downs, as their third down percentage in 2019 when they did not have Stephon Diggs was 30%. And then at the same time this year they're at 50%. That's a huge increase. And I would say that's because Josh Allen has gotten better as a quarterback, but he also has a great weapon. So this forces defenses to stop focusing on. They have to focus on Stephon Diggs, and that creates more one-on-one matchups with John Brown. Hopefully he comes back healthy. I know he was out, but you have Cole Beasley on third down, and I really think it gives you 2 great pass catchers, because we all been talking about the DeAndre Hopkins catch, but the catch before that in the end zone for the Bills was a very nice route run by Stephon Diggs against Patrick Peterson. It was a great throw, and it should have won them the game until it's a one-time play, and it's incredible. But I think they might be able to go deep into the AFC, but it's going to be a hard-fought playoff year for them.
Definitely.
I think
we definitely can move on to 3, which we have the Green Bay Packers. They didn't play too well last week. However, their offense, we know, can step up. Robert Tanyan was kind of injured. Aaron Jones has still been injured and playing, and we don't really know what's happening. But Devontae Adams is playing like the best wide receiver in the league, in my opinion, right now. He's had so many yards, so many catches, so many touchdowns, and Aaron Rodgers is up there for MVP right now, and we'll have to see who gets it. But the only real problem for the Packers is their defense. They've had some quality games and had some very bad games. We'll have to see how they perform. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I'd say Devontae Adams is a great. He's definitely top five. He can. I'm just gonna say DeAndre Hopkins, just because Devontae Adams has the better quarterback that he out of the quarterback duo. Because I don't. You have seen a lot of bad passes from Kyler Murray, and I would dare to say I don't think Aaron Rodgers has thrown a bad pass, but they're both great wide receivers. And I think the key, though, for the Packers is the run game. Because I think when that's excelling, that creates more opportunities for not only Devontae Adams, but the wide receivers under him. Marquez, Vandis Scantling, Allen Lazard. And that's, I think, they need, if they could have made a trade, it should have been to get another weapon for Aaron Rodgers, because you can only do so much to scheme them open, and that's what I think the run game does. Because Matt LaFleur is a former coach under McVay, and McVay is a huge proponent of the run game, and I think that's gone through Matt LaFleur. But I think they need to get the run game going so then they can open up the other wide receivers, because I think you can double team Devontae Adams while he still is going to get production. You're really not going to take advantage of those one-on-one matchups for the wide receivers. Would you agree?
Yeah, the Packers also could have gone for any defensive piece right now because their defense is really struggling. But I mean, a piece for Aaron Rodgers always works because he can make anything go on.
Yeah.
I think we could move to 2, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers. We do not have them at 1 because of how poorly they played against certain teams, but they handily defeated the Bengals last week, and they're moving in the right direction. They played the Jaguars this week, so it's not going to be all that interesting of a performance, but I don't really trust their offense as much as some do, especially against a bend don't break defense like the team above them, which we can already mention is the Chiefs because it's the last team left. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I wasn't impressed with what they did against the Cowboys. Like the Cowboys have Terrence Steele at right tackle. He's facing TJ Watt, and they didn't get many sacks on a quarterback making his first start, Garrett Gilbert. But they did bounce back against the Bengals. But I think you're right. I'm not sure if their offense can go toe to toe when their defense is failing. I think their defense, though, has the ability to create pressure on any quarterback, even if that quarterback's Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, or Aaron Rodgers. But it's just, will they get the pressures? Because they have the pieces. They have Cam Hayward, they have TJ Watt, they have Bud Dupree, but their secondary is a little bit weak, but they do have Minka Fitzpatrick. But I think that's why they're at number 2. Their offense, if they were put in this situation, I'm not sure. Even though Ben Roethlisberger is still a good quarterback, it's very iffy sometimes. But
Yeah.
I think we can go to number 1.
Yeah, which is Kansas City.
Chiefs.
Patrick Mahomes, I think, is the best quarterback in the league. It's debatable with Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers and those, but he's really put himself up at the top of he's the cream of the crop. And their defense, I believe, would do better against a team like the Steelers than the Steelers would do against the Chiefs defense, because the Chiefs offense is so potent that they could do almost anything that they wanted. Like I was saying before the video started, Kevin, they could score 30 points against anybody. And I don't know if the Steelers could score 30 points on the Chiefs defense is my thing. And what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, and we've said it before in episodes before this. The Chiefs have bend don't break defense, but they make it when it counts. You have Tyrann Mathieu. I remember the game against the Patriots when the Patriots had the chance to make a key drive. Tyrann Mathieu gets a pick six. It's plays like that that separate a good defense to a championship defense, which is what they are. And they added another weapon in Le'Veon Bell. I just think there are so many weapons, and I think Patrick Mahomes is amazing, and just combined with Andy Reid, this offense is just phenomenal. And you're right, they could probably score 30 on any team. It's just incredible, and I think it's going to be difficult for the playoffs, but I would have them go into the championship.
I agree. Right now, they are my front runner to win it all and go back to back.
Yeah, so we made history tonight as we got the first hour episode for Outsiders Opinions. There's just so much stuff going on in the NFL, so I know it's about double the time of our episodes, but there's just so much going on. So we thank you for listening to this whole thing and reaching the end. If you would like an updated review of the NFL playoff picture, go check out our last episode. Again, if this is your first time listening to our show, make sure to go check out our new trailer to learn what our podcast is all about. Also, for everyone, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell to turn on notifications to find out when we drop our next episode. In our next episode, we will discuss NBA free agency and the draft because often so much stuff is happening. Stuff was happening during this episode, and we will talk about that next episode.
Sounds like a plan.